Now, just a quick recap in the story. Today, I'm going to discuss around 30 verses. Last time, we discussed only 5. So, Yusuf alayhi salam has a dream. He sees 11 stars, the sun and the moon, and they are all prostrating to him. And from tafsir, we know that the 11 stars are representing Yusuf's brothers, and the sun and the moon are his parents. So he tells this dream to his father, Yaqub alayhi salam. You can see his response here. We discussed it last time. And Yaqub alayhi salam is aware of what this dream implies. It implies that Yusuf at some point is going to reach a status that is higher than the rest of the family, right? And so the first thing he does after acknowledging that is he gives Yusuf alayhi salam a warning that do not share this dream with your brothers, otherwise they may plot to harm you. And we also said specifically that Yaqub alayhi salam is not trying to make the atmosphere worse between his children. So he's specifically blaming the shaitan, which is something we should all try to do, especially between Muslims. So now we'll carry on from where we left off. I'll just recite the verse first. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وكذلك يجتبيك ربك ويعلمك من تأويل الأحاديث ويتم نعمته عليك وعلى آل يعقوب كما أتمها على أبويك من قبل إبراهيم وإسحاق إن ربك عليم حكيم. So Yaqub alayhi salam is adding on. He first gives a warning, but here in this second verse, or the verse after it, he says, وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ. So the word for Allah chose you is يَجْتَبِيكَ. But if we have a lot of Arabic speakers here, you'd know there are other ways of saying chose. You can say ikhtar, you can say istafa. That's why people refer to the Prophet as Mustafa, the chosen one, right? But yajtabika is specifically choosing someone because they have the qualifications to be chosen. But now I want you to imagine, you're doing your CV, you are going to whatever, Google offices to get a job at Google. And then your CV is incredible, you have all these qualifications. And then in the interview, the person's like, you did amazing. But then the next day, he's like, you don't get the job. And you're like, why? The interview went so well. Like in yourself, you just say, why? And then he's like, oh, there's this other guy that came. And he said, well, I had a dream that I was supposed to work here. That's enough. We'll take you instead. Right? So like, Yusuf at this point is like 7 to 9 years old. What did he do besides have a dream to make him qualified? I want you guys to think and give me answers, even if it's wrong, because it's kind of hard to think. But like, what possible qualifications could a 7 to 9-year-old have? It's a bit tricky. Give wrong answers, just say. His character, that's 100% a part of it. Because we're going to see that his character out of his brothers is the best. That's one point. But there needs to also be like more. Probably had more knowledge. It's not specifically specified at this stage he had more knowledge, but he probably did. So I'll give you one thing. Later, actually it relates to what you said. Later in the story, we see that every time a dream is mentioned, the person asks, can you please help me interpret this dream? Like, I need someone to interpret this ru'ya. Yusuf alayhi salam, when he says the dream over here. Also, I forgot to mention, I actually tried making a PowerPoint, and then I kind of gave up midway because I don't like making PowerPoints, I don't like designing, I just like writing scripts. So I really did try, but I gave up. So we're just going to use Quran.com. People are always asking, okay, I tell you the dream, now tell me what it means. Yusuf alayhi salam tells the dream, and he doesn't ask what it means. Or Allah didn't mention that he asks it, which shows that he somewhat knows the implication of it, and he wants his father to know. So here, there's something else that Yaqub alayhi salam does to use the word yajtabika. And it may even be an exaggeration, but there's a reason he does it. He says, وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيث, like Munsaf said, he's going to teach him. Ahadith, by the way, does not just mean interpreting dreams. I know it says here dreams, but ahadith is any kind of matter where people need like there's confusion, people want to be clear about it. وَيُتِمُّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكَ وَعَلَى آلِ يَعْقُوبَ. So like, at first, he's giving him a warning, but he's also a kid. Like, let him hear something a bit hopeful. So he's saying, you, Yusuf, my son, Allah has chosen you, and يتم نعمته عليك وعلى آل يعقوب. He's saying that you are also a pride for the family. Like, if you see how the Prophet was with the Sahaba, especially the young Sahaba, like Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was the most knowledgeable of the Sahaba when it comes to halal and haram, he specifically, like, it's as if he sees a seed in him and he waters it. So in this case, Yaqub alayhi salam is watering that seed in Yusuf. And the last thing he says was, Inna rabbaka alimun hakim. Imagine this is the last thing Yaqub alayhi salam says to Yusuf before they're separated for approximately 40 years, the Mufassirin say. And we're going to see in Yusuf's story that it's the names of Allah that actually keep him going. Last time we also discussed that like doing tadabbur or contemplation of the Quran requires you to think about Allah's names and why He used those names. So you can see with Allah's ilm and with Allah's hikmah, and hikmah means to put something in its place, He is able to make that decision, and He chose Yusuf for the right reasons. لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. This is basically Allah trying to get your attention before we start the story, that in Yusuf and his brothers, there is ayatul lis-sa'ilin. Sa'ilin is like people who ask and they want to learn these ayat. So you're kind of like in yourself supposed to say, I am from the sa'ilin, ya Allah. I will try to listen and make something out of this. So now the camera shifts, right? It's not Yaqub alayhi salam. Now it's the 10 brothers, not 11. Because so basically, camera shifts to them. They're like in a huddle. They're like, إِذْ قَالُوا لَيُوسُفُ وَأَخُوهُ أَحَبُّ إِلَىٰ أَبِينَا. This guy Yusuf and his brother, they don't even refer to them as our brother. Like this guy Yusuf and his brother is more beloved to Yaqub alayhi salam. وَنَحْنُ عَصْبَةٌ. Asba means 5 to 10 people. So like we are more in number. Like where is this love that he's giving to them? Where is it towards us? إِنَّ أَبَانَ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Like we were talking about like dementia and Alzheimer's earlier. Like this man is lost. Like he's probably losing memory. You know, something's wrong with him. That's like what they're implying here. So you can see there's already this story, like this climax is building up. اقتلوا يوسف أو اطرحوه أرضا يخلو لكم وجه أبيكم. So someone says, اقتلوا يوسف, kill Yusuf. Imagine his brothers are suggesting to kill Yusuf. And in the next verse we see that when one person says something, Allah specifies that that one person said it. But in the beginning here, it's just اقتلوا Yusuf, meaning that one person said kill Yusuf and everyone's kind of like agreeing with it. They're kind of actually going with it. It's like a collective, let's kill Yusuf. أو اطرحوه أرضا يخلو لكم وجه أبيكم. The word for, you can see banish, here is tarh. Tarh is, like you can say I put something, but tarh specifically means you put something that doesn't have value away. Or you put something out of sight. That's what tarh means linguistically. يَخْلُو لَكُمْ وَجْهُ أَبِيكُمْ. So that our father's attention comes back to us. I mean, what an amazing plan. We're going to kill Yusuf or throw him. Our dad's going to be like, oh, guys, how are you? And yeah, amazing, right? وَتَكُونُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. Normally in the Quran, when you have like bad people, like Haman or Nimrud or Fir'aun, these people are non-Muslims or they're kuffar. Here, وَتَكُونُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ, that after we do this, we are going to be righteous, as in we are going to repent. They are Muslims, they know what they're doing is wrong, right? So we're going to repent after it. I think there's a very important point of reflection here, and everyone needs to revise on themselves. If you've ever thought of planning to do a sin in the future and then planning to repent, like you could have 100 moments where you're sinning, but the moment of death is just one moment. Like I can't imagine that like fear of whatever it is, them doing this plan, and then you turn behind you and you see Malak al-Maut, the angel of death. Like I can't even process how bad that is. So if you do a sin in the moment, repent instantly. But to think in the future, or like for Ramadan, I'm gonna be good, and then I'm gonna plan to sin after Ramadan, and then I'm gonna repent again. That is extremely dangerous, and it's exactly what they're doing here, but Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, He gives them a chance. قال قائل منهم. One of them said, no, don't kill Yusuf. وألقوه في غيابة الجب يلتقطه بعض السيارة إن كنتم فاعلين. It's somewhat good of him to say this, but also a bit funny. So one of them says, don't kill Yusuf. Throw him in the depths of a well so that a sayyara, a car, like it's a Tesla, pulls up and takes the... No, that's not what it means. It means caravan, right? In kuntum fa'ilin. I'm going to try to explain the tonality. It's like, guys, if you want to kill him, if you're going to do this plan, kind of like separating himself, when criminals, they do something bad, there's a guilty conscience, they want anyway to kind of justify it. So here, this person is kind of like, if you guys are going to do this, okay, then you might as well do this instead. So he basically picked the lesser of the two evils. And it's still an evil. But that's why the Mufassirin would say that in this case, this person has more taqwa than them. Although that taqwa is not, I would say, very high, it's still more than them. But has anyone thought of why the word Allah uses here is jub? So jub here means well. I don't know why I asked that. It's something I really strongly think you wouldn't know. That's with my respect to all of you. I didn't know it myself. So the reason why, what's the common word for jub, like well, for the Arabic speakers? What is it? Bi'r, right? So if no one here speaks Arabic, bi'r is the normal word used for well. Now there's a difference between bi'r and jub. Like let me search well. Oops, well. Let's see what we get. You see something like this. So you can see it's made to, clearly someone intentionally made this and he structured it and he put a bucket in it. So it's kind of welcoming, he used the well. This is called a bi'r. This is not a jub. A jub instead is you're walking in a desert and then you see this cylindrical, kind of as if it's a well, going down to the ground and there's water, but it's out of civilization. There's no one built a brick around it and put a bucket. So that's showing you even worse, that the jub is worse than a bi'r. It's not there's a bucket and then they dropped him down in a nice environment. I mean, a well is not a nice environment, but a jub is even worse, right? يلتقطه بعد السيارة إن كنت فاعلين. قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف وإنا له لناصحون. So now the camera is shifting. The brothers, they go to Yaqub alayhi salam. يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا على يوسف. Why do you not trust us with Yusuf? وإنا له لناصحون. And we wish him well. There's something so interesting here. If you were to recite this verse, you'd normally say, قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا, which basically means, oh Father, why do you not trust us with Yusuf? But you could also stop the verse at another time. You can say, قالوا يا أبانا ما لك. If anyone here speaks in a certain dialect, if I say inti malik, if I say to my parent, to my mom, inti malik, I'm dead. That's the end of me. What's wrong with you? Pulls out the belt and obviously, no, Allah doesn't say that. He doesn't pull out the belt. But you can read it, malak, and then they say, la ta'manna. It's reverse psychology. So what's wrong with you? Khalas, don't trust us with Yusuf. And this would be using reverse psychology. Khalas, don't trust us with Yusuf. And then they hope that Yaqub alayhi salam is going to be okay, fine, I'll give you a chance. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَنَاصِحُونَ. And we wish him well. Obviously, you can see that on Yaqub's end, the suspicion is building up because, he didn't trust them right away. So then he says, أَرْسِلْهُ مَعَنَا غَدًا يَرْتَعْ وَيَلْعَبْ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. You can see their deception is just more and more and more. Not only will we take Yusuf and we want good for him, we're going to let him play, we're going to let him just have an amazing time. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We're going to take good care of him. It's doing ta'keed, reassurance that we are going to take good care of him. Now, Yaqub alayhi salam gives a very interesting response. قال إني ليحزنني أن تذهبوا به وأخاف أن يأكله الذئب وأنتم عنه غافلون. So there's two emotions here. There's fear and there's sadness. And sadness is for an event that happened in the past. Fear would be an emotion for the future, right? But Yaqub alayhi salam's sadness here is as if to say that his suspicion of them doing something is inevitable, that it's worth him being sad about. Also showing you how close he was to Yusuf, that just the thought of him being separated away from me for that amount of time, that saddens me. وَأَخَافُ أَن يَأْكُلَهُ الذِّئْبُ وَأَنْتُمْ عَنْهُ غَافِلُونَ. And I'm scared that not a wolf, that the wolf would eat him, وأنتم عنه غافلون. So here it's written a wolf, and that's not incorrect, but everything Allah does, He does it intentionally. So here, this part, I'm gonna highlight this. I can't highlight it for some reason, but that alif lam, al-dhi'b, is, it's called ma'rifah. It has an alif lam. So it's the wolf. So that the father has a specific mind, a specific wolf in mind, and he knows it. But because he also said the wolf, it could also be figurative that what they are doing is wolf-like. That this, and you know, like when you think of like foxes and wolves, you think of like the sly, the cunning, right? So that's exactly what they are like here. It's very figurative. وَأَنْتُمْ عَنْهُ غَافِلُونَ. They sense that because there's not much love on their end for Yusuf, that they're not going to pay attention, right? That makes sense. Very like, it makes sense why Yaqub alayhi salam would think this way. So then they reply, قالوا لئن أكله الذئب ونحن عصبة إنا إذا لخاسرون. That if we were to eat, if we were to eat, hold up, what? If a wolf were to eat Yusuf alayhi salam when there's so many of us, then we're truly losers. Again, like, I'll give an example, okay? Let's say someone here recently got their license, and then you want to finally drive outside. So you say, I need to buy some groceries. I'll take my car, I'll go to the supermarket. And then your mom, who cares so much for you, is like, La ya habibi, don't go now. Do you want me to come with you? Are you sure you can drive well? She's, you know, she really cares for you. And then you tell her, like, Mom, like, if I can't go to the supermarket, how are you going to trust me going anywhere else? That's the kind of logic they're using. How is a wolf, like if a wolf were to eat Yusuf and we are 10 people, then that just says that we are horrible, right? And, well, I mean, to an extent, they were really horrible in this case. So now we're done from the conversation. Camera shifts to them manifesting their plan. So فَلَمَّا ذَهَبُوا بِهِ وَأَجْمَعُوا أَن يَجْعَلُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ. So here they're manifesting this plan, they're making it come true. And وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُم بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They do the plan, they drop Yusuf. The way the Mufassirin, like they obviously Allah doesn't share these details, but if you just want to imagine the scenario, is that they're taking Yusuf alayhi salam to the bi'r, probably like convincing him that he's going to play. I said bi'r, it's jub. That he's going to play. And then at some point, they lower like their own bucket, and then they kind of cut it. And Yusuf alayhi salam is sitting at the bottom on like a rock that's kind of surrounded by water. That's the kind of vision, if you want to like just visualize it. Now, وَجَاءُوا أَبَاهُمْ عِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ. They came عِشَاءً, at nightfall, and they returned to their father weeping. Notice, عِشَاءً. It's as if like they intentionally come at night to make it seem like we've been looking for him for the past few hours, and you know, we really tried, and you know, they're probably coming like they're panting and they're covering their faces and they're trying to do fake tears, like they're trying their best to win an Oscar here, okay? And they're trying to show Yaqub alayhi salam that what they're saying is the truth. Now they actually speak up. قالوا يا أبانا إنا ذهبنا نستبق. So we went out to race each other. So like the 10 brothers, 3, 2, 1, and then they run and they're racing, and that they left their things back along with Yusuf. وتركنا يوسف عند متاعنا فأكله الذئب. Subhanallah, the wolf that you mentioned earlier is the one that ate Yusuf. How did you know? Like, subhanallah, you must be a genius, right? وما أنت بمؤمن لنا ولو كنا صادقين. Even if we were telling the truth, you wouldn't believe us. So again, reverse psychology, but also وما أنت بمؤمن لنا ولو كنا صادقين. That's if we're telling the truth. They just like expose themselves. ولو كنا, if we were telling the truth. So I think that's probably like in the conversation, probably like slipped up, and from the emotions, they didn't get their words through clearly. And just imagine like Yaqub alayhi salam being the prophet that he is, the son of Ishaq, the son of Ibrahim, the friend of Allah, right? You would expect that like you'd have a high standard for your family, and not only do you love your children, like you would be you would be so angry. You would be so angry, right? So, but they still try to prove their point. وَجَاءُوا عَلَى قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ. They came and they brought their evidence with Yusuf's shirt, and it had دم كذب, false blood, probably like sheep's blood or something. قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا. That no, your souls, or sorry, your nafs actually, prompted you to do this. Now, for the people who were here earlier, who did Yaqub blame last time? Shaitan, right? Now he's blaming their anfus. Like you can see, this is showing you indirectly how angry he was. It's more personal now. قال بل سولت لكم أنفسكم أمرا. Right? And in Islam, or in the Quran, the nafs, right, which is a part of your identity, it has 3 levels, okay? There is a nafs al-mutma'inna, like at the end of Surah Al-Fajr, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna, irji'i, and so on. That, oh, you tranquil soul, like, but mutma'inna in this context is used in the day of judgment when you enter Jannah. It's also used in the real world, in the dunya, when you are pleased, mutma'in, with following Allah and the Prophet, and you're at ease with it. And then there's an-nafs al-lawwama, which Allah swears by in Surah Al-Qiyamah, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ. Nafs al-lawwama is very important because it's when you do something wrong and you feel that guilt is a nafs al-lawwama. So that guilt is what's prompting you to go back to the right path. But here, the nafs that took over is a nafs al-ammara. Ammara meaning that it made you do that thing. And this is the thing which makes you submit to your desires and all of that. So if I were to ask, what is the biggest enemy to a human? What would you say? The nafs. So Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, he meant, rahimahullah, he said that, and also Ibn Taymiyyah says this, that the nafs is your greatest enemy, right? Why is it the greatest enemy? I mean, I can ask you a question. Who was the only person that did not have a shaitan to whisper to him? No, he did have a shaitan to whisper to him. The shaitan himself. The shaitan himself didn't have a shaitan to whisper to him, right? But he did, in front of Allah, he did arrogance, he did kufr, not as in he did not believe in Allah. He believes Allah existed. But he didn't believe in his attributes, like him being the all-just, the all-wise, right? And so, even for us in Ramadan, I mean, there's the hadith, صُفِّدَتْ مَرَدَةُ الْجِنِّ وَالشَّيَاطِينَ, that the bad of the jinn and the shayateen are locked up in Ramadan. But people can still sin, although it's less, I would say, right? So your biggest enemy is actually your nafs, and it's a part of your identity. It's always there within, but are you going to let it manifest outside? That's the question. They did. So, وَجَاءُوا عَلَى قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ, they came with this shirt with false blood. He says that your nafs prompted you to do this. فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ. I don't know who, like what human would be able to do sabrun jameel, beautiful patience, besides the prophets, because I think it's justifiable for anyone to, I mean, have a breakdown and pull out the belt and start doing your thing, right? So, وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. But see, his wisdom is beyond us as humans. He knows that after all of this deception, my anger is not gonna help them, it's not gonna help me in any way. They keep on lying to me. What am I actually going to gain by flipping out on them? So we're gonna see this theme recurring in Surat Yusuf, that I am not going to trust you guys. I'm not even going to trust myself. I'm going to trust Allah. So Allahu al-Musta'anu, that I will seek help from Allah in what you say or what you describe. So now, Yusuf alayhi salam is in the well, in the jub. وَجَاءَتْ سَيَّارَةٌ فَأَرْسَلُوا وَارِدَهُمْ فَأَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ. You know, someone sees sayyara, like, what? They had that back then? They had cars? Again, it means caravan, right? فَأَرْسَلُوا وَارِدَهُمْ فَأَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ. This is another proof. This basically means that there's people who came with the caravan. They dropped, what's the word? أَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ. أَدْلَى means to lower, دَلْوَهُ, their bucket. The proof that the word jub is better than bi'r is because them dropping his own bucket meant there wasn't even a bucket there in the first place. So like if it was an actual bi'r and it was made for people to drink, you know, it would have a bucket. Here it didn't have a bucket. So it's like they didn't even leave a bucket for Yusuf to be picked up by someone. He had to drop down his own bucket, this person who came with the caravan. قال يا بشرى. He's not saying, oh, hey, Bushra. Like, no, it's not a woman. Ya Bushra is like, oh snap, like I just found a kid in a well, right? That's actually what it means. That's the kind of description. هذا غلام. Oh snap, I just found a kid in the bottom of a well. وأصروه بضاعة. They took him as a piece of merchandise, probably to go to the slave market. والله عليم بما يعملون. والله عليم بما يعملون. Allah is all knowing of what they do. No matter how much Yusuf alayhi salam is going to be oppressed in this story, Allah always knows what the others are going to do, and so He's going to plan ahead. Always does. وشروه بثمن بخس دراهم معدودة وكانوا فيه من الزاهدين. They sold, by the way, some people get confused. If you speak Arabic, you think of شروه as I bought, like اشتريت. In this case, شروه without the ta is actually I sold, right? بثمن بخس. ثمن بخس is like few pennies, like for nothing, a few pieces of silver, right? So like, he's not even, like, I mean, come on, if you're going to sell Yusuf, sell him for $1 million and make profit off of him, like, you know? No, don't sell him at all, obviously, but, right? Ma'duda. Ma'duda specifically means few, and I think something nice about this word is, since we're in Ramadan, in Surat al-Baqarah, when Allah talks about, there's very few verses of fasting in Ramadan, right? And in one of the verses, He says, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَات, that Ramadan is just a few days that you can count. Like, ma'dudat means very little. And we, as people fasting in Ramadan, we should use that as a reminder that if the fasting is making you like slack on studying, if it's making you feel tired, if it's making you, like you're doing well on your ibadah, but the rest, of your life is kind of slowing down, remind yourself, ayyama ma'dudat, it's just a few days. And then you're going to come back. But subhanAllah, people would think we hate fasting, but when Ramadan passes, we actually miss it and want to go back to it. So I feel like that's a mu'jiza, that's a miracle. وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. A very interesting word choice here. And towards him, they were from the Zahideen. The word zuhd, in Arabic, we have a lot of good traits. You have, one of them is zuhd. Zuhd is a good trait to have. Zuhd means, like if I am someone zahid, that means I am belittling of the value of this dunya, which is a good thing. Because when you belittle it, then you focus on the akhirah. So here, they belittled Yusuf, but it can also be understood as a sarcasm from Allah that they were from the Zahideen, which they actually weren't, if we're taking it in the sense that they were Zahideen as in, belittling the dunya. If anything, they're not doing that. So now, we go to Egypt. وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِن مِصْرَ لِامْرَأَتِهِ أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ. So a man that bought, we're going to find out who this man is, a man that bought Yusuf from Egypt, he tells his wife, أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ, look after him well, treat him with karam. For the first time we see like something good's happening to Yusuf here, right? عَسَى أَن يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. I don't have the answer for this, but you will notice there's a lot of parallels between Yusuf's story and Musa's story in terms of how the phrases, like when the wife of Fir'aun, Asya, actually took in Musa, she says the same thing to Fir'aun, like عَسَى أَن يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا, that he may help us, in service, or we could take him as a son. And the Mufassirin here say that they probably didn't have children for a while, and so they saw this as a good opportunity to take Yusuf as a child, right? So, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Like you think all of this is happening with a coincidence? No, this is Allah establishing Yusuf alayhi salam in the land. وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, and we will teach him in interpreting dreams and speech. وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. This is one of the best reminders we need from the surah, that whatever happens, if it seems like it's inevitable, you are going to go down. Okay, I thought he was going to sit on the ground for a second. If you feel like things are not in your favor, right? Nothing can happen unless Allah wills it to happen. And a story that I love, I don't have it memorized, but the Prophet ﷺ was sitting under a tree, and he was, I think he was taking a nap, or he was resting, it was something like that. And he, for a second, let his guard down, and he had a sword next to him. And a man that's walking past him takes the sword, and then points it at the Prophet. And he tells him, And the Prophet wakes up, he's alert now. He says, then tell me what is between this sword and me killing you. Like there's, like literally, like the sword's up like on his neck. What can stop me from killing you right now? Prophet gives the, like, I don't know, like obviously even for all Muslims, I don't know who would give this reply in this moment. We would freak out. He says, Allah. And the man is shocked by the response. He drops the sword. And although he doesn't become Muslim, he acknowledged, like, you know, we know the people back then of Quraysh, they believed in Allah, but they just did not want to leave their traditions. So it's showing you that if Allah didn't, like, subhanAllah, so many people wanted to kill the Prophet, but Allah did not will that. So that didn't happen. So Allahu ghalibun ala amrih. Any amr, Allah is going to overpower that. But unfortunately, most people do not know. It's kind of Allah saying, you should remember this. Remember that Allah is going, his mashi'ah, his will is going to prevail. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So بَلَغَ, when Yusuf reached maturity, it could mean maturity as in he reached puberty, or it could also mean maturity that he reached his prime age of knowledge and physicality, right? Because أشُدَّهُ is like tough, like shadid, it's like strong in his maturity. So when he reached this maturity, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We brought to him hukm and ilma. It's a little interesting here, like the order that Allah uses, like we've just seen in an earlier verse, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. Allah has the ilm, He has the knowledge. With that knowledge, He يحكم, He puts things in their place. But here, although Allah is kind of saying, by making hikmah come first, or hukmah, that Yusuf hasn't gone through much experience, yet we have given him that wisdom anyways. And subhanAllah, we see people nowadays, you may just be naturally good at something. You just may be built for, you know, like public speech. You may be built for like some critical thinking or something. And you can't really think of like, what did I do to even get this? Like, it's just something from Allah. And then on top of that, we gave him more knowledge, right? وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. If you have ihsan in your ibadah, ihsan meaning excellence. Like, if I'm gonna pray right now, I want to reach ihsan in my prayer. I want to excel in it. Do this, Allah will bring for you hukma wa ilma. And I think it's very mature for someone to make dua for things like hikmah and ilm, along with your material things in this dunya, because that tells me something about you. If you make dua for knowledge and for hikmah, I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. Like, you care more than just about valuable things. So that's a good sign if you're actually making dua for things like this. So now we turn on the next page. And this verse, I think, is one of the most, I wouldn't say misunderstood, but people don't give it the justice it deserves. And it's a very popular verse. That's why I'm saying this. At this point, Yusuf alayhi salam Allah has manifested him with the utmost beauty. Like we know from authentic hadith, Yusuf alayhi salam was given half of the beauty of mankind. If anyone else, like a normal person says this, like for example, like, I don't know, like a father saying to his wife, you have half of the beauty of the world. This is in ta'bir majazi, it's like you're exaggerating because, I mean, it's just like a love language thing. But here, because the Prophet's the one who told us that Yusuf has half of the beauty in the world. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. He does not speak from himself, he speaks from revelation. We know that it's kind of meant in a literal sense, like that there's something divine about it. وراودته التي هو في بيتها عن نفسه وغلقت الأبواب وقالت هيت لك. So the woman, the wife of the king, imagine like this big part of the palace, and she locked all of the abwab, the doors. It's not even one door, it's multiple doors. And Yusuf alayhi salam is minding his own business, he's doing his service. He's probably like looking at her like while she's locking the doors. He's like, it's fine, there's like 10 doors anyways. I won't worry about her locking a few doors. And then she locks the last door. And then she says, hayta lak. Now hayta, lak in Arabic, like it's very seductive. And it's also very authoritative. So hayta lak is like, come here, right? Like trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. And why did I say this is like a verse that's not given its justice? Because people look at this verse and they're like, this is a verse about zina. So, you know, Yusuf alayhi salam was prompted to do zina and he said no. And so when you make it seem that way, you don't think of yourself really learning much from it because you're like, I'm so far from doing zina anyways. Like, there's not much to learn from here. That's not the point. Yusuf alayhi salam is exposed to a fitna. The first thing he says, Ma'adallah. Instantly, I seek protection in Allah. He cut the rope from the beginning before it can escalate. Ma'adallah. Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathway. That either my Lord, as in Allah, or Rabbi, as in the king, ahsana mathway. Earlier we saw in this verse, the king says, Akrimi mathwah, right? Treat him well, like treat him with karam. So this is why this could mean both. It could mean, Innahu Rabbi, as in Allah. Allah has done me so well, so how can I do something that is displeasing to Allah? Or it could be that this king has given me a good place in this palace. How could I, forget this favor? Innahu la yuflihu dhalimun. If this was talking about Allah, innahu la yuflihu dhalimun, people also think of dhulm as oppression, like just one-to-one, like I oppress someone and that's it. When you do something bad or you sin, you're actually oppressing yourself. That's why Yunus alayhi salam, he leaves, I don't know if you know the story, but he tries his best to convert his whole nation. And let's just say it didn't work well at all. And he goes and he's hopeless and he's like, I'm done with these people, okay? I'm done, I'm not doing this. And then Allah makes the whale swallow him. And inside, he says the famous dua, Allahu la ilaha illa anta subhanaka, and he ends it with, Inni kuntu min al-zalimin, that I was from the, in a sense, oppressors. That what I did is actually, in a sense, I did oppression to myself. Or I did something which I should have done better for your sake, Ya Allah. So if Yusuf would have done so and so, he would have been from the ظالمون. وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا رَأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. This is just mind-blowing to think about. هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ. She's leaning towards him, she's inclining towards him, she's really taking steps forward to him. But then وَهَمَّ بِهَا, that Yusuf also would have succumbed to her, he would have leaned towards her. And there's a very important takeaway here, is that if you, for instance, you've been doing good on your deen, you've been practicing, you pray your sunnahs, you might get this inflation in yourself, the sense of pride, and think to yourself that if I was exposed to a certain fitna, that I'm not gonna do so and so. And that's why I said it's not a verse about zina. If you were working and you were given a bribe, do you really know in that moment if you would accept it or not? So here Yusuf, we're seeing from Yusuf that you, no matter what your level is, you will never beat your temptation. That nafs that we talked about, the nafs al-ammara, is always there. And I also mentioned earlier, he can't trust himself. If he trusted himself and he was like, I'm a man of character, I'm not going to do this, he would have succumbed to her. But ma'adallah, he instantly makes a dua, I seek protection from Allah. And that way, he says, Allah says, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَرَّأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. He saw, if it wasn't for him seeing Allah's evidence, Allahu a'lam what he saw. Maybe he saw Jibreel, maybe it was the dua. He saw something. And this was enough for him to, go back. كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. This is, I have to translate it first. So that way we get rid of, we take away the fahsha and everything bad and filthy. And then Yusuf is from عبادنا المخلصين. So there's a difference between mukhlis and mukhlas. So if I say you are someone mukhlis, that means you are sincere. Mukhlas is also about sincerity, but mukhlas means that it's emphasizing that Allah gave you the ikhlas, right? So it's like Allah accepted his dua and Allah gave him this trait. إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. We obviously know ikhlas is something huge in Islam. Every action that you do for it to be accepted by Allah, you have to have the proper niyyah, the intention, and the ikhlas, the sincerity. And that's why it's very nice to build a habit of having a secret between you and Allah. That you do have have a good deed every week or every month where it's just you and Allah and no one can see you, because you can guarantee your ikhlas in that moment is 100%. Otherwise, why else are you doing it? وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابَ. So now Yusuf is running to the door. And وَقَدَّتْ قَمِيصَهُ مِنْ دُبُرٍ. And probably he's a lot faster and she can't keep up with him. So he grabs the back of his shirt. dubur means the back, and as he's running, the shirt gets ripped. وَأَلْفَيَ سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. As they're running, so I'm running right there, and then suddenly the door opens and the professor sees me. That happens. But in this case, it's the king who's the husband of the wife. وَأَلْفَيَ سَيِّدَهَا لَدَى الْبَابِ. He's suddenly there. And then suddenly, the wife's face completely changes. قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. Oh my husband, oh my king, what do you think is the punishment of someone that tried to dishonor your wife? Suddenly, like your beautiful, amazing wife. So just again, we see there's the manipulation of the brothers. Now she's manipulating him. Yusuf can't take a break from manipulation. So should we imprison him? Should we give him a painful punishment? All right, so there you can see this two-facedness here. And Yusuf alayhi salam, initially he's not the one who said anything. But after she said that, now he says, قال هي راودتني عن نفسي وشهد شاهد من أهلها إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين. She's the one who tried to seduce me. I didn't do anything. And there was a witness in the palace from whoever, okay? And he says that, or he or she, I don't know who this person is, that if the qamis, Yusuf's shirt, was ripped from the front, then she's telling the truth. Because if it's ripped from the front, that means that Yusuf alayhi salam was approaching her, so she has to rip it from the front. She can't rip it from the back. Otherwise, if it's ripped from the back, then Yusuf alayhi salam is telling the truth, and she's lying. And as we know, she is the one that's lying. So he sees here that the shirt is ripped from the back. قال إنه من كيدكن إن كيدكن عظيم. Right, so here he's kind of saying like, this is from your deception. And then he says, the deception of you women. So it can be understood as like a hit to all women. But what's actually happening here is that this king, I mean, you can imagine the kind of role that he has. First of all, it's kind of like a political role. He's probably seen a lot of these things happen before. And it's in the moment that he's in this like frustration, saying, what you're doing and what all of you women do is just very, like, oh, we've seen this before. But I'm sure this is not present to anyone in this room, because in the end, there's like, when Allah presents a man in a bad light in the Quran, He does that more than women anyways. So here, this is kind of like, think of it as a part that could potentially exist in your nafs, but I'm sure no one in this room is actually letting it manifest out. And that's, otherwise Allah wouldn't have mentioned it. So you can think about it as, this is a bad trait that I could potentially have. Let me conceal it and hide it. يوسف أعرض عن هذا واستغفري لذنبك إنك كنت من الخاطئين. Yusuf, خلاص, it's okay, you can go now, you're fine. And then he looks at her and says, استغفري لذنبك, ask forgiveness for your sin. إنك كنت من الخاطئين. So pretty self-explanatory, right? But I mean, it's also weird that like, although the king didn't do anything bad, we also don't see this like ghira from him. Like, your wife was literally cheating on you with a slave boy. Like, what? Where is the infial? Where is the like anger here? He's saying, seek forgiveness for what you've done, right? So I mean, the king isn't really like all that high in terms of, good traits either. Now, camera shifts. We hear what happens in the neighborhood, in the town. وقال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه. So the word is spreading. You wake up one day, you open your phone, you see there's this like thing trending that I don't know what couple, this person cheated with a boy, and all of a sudden the word is spreading. And then the women say, قد شغفها حبا إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين. That shagaf means when the love like pierced your heart. And that we see her in like, she's clearly like messed up. She's gone astray. Now, basically, like, it sounds maybe to some that they're like critiquing her, like, astaghfirullah, what's she doing? She should repent. She should be better than this. But no, it's actually pure gossip, and there's a jealousy between them and the queen. And so this is not a good kind of criticism. This is complete gossiping, backbiting. And we know that gossiping is haram, major sin, even if you're saying the truth about that person, because you wouldn't say it to his face. So here they're not giving like critical feedback, they're completely just gossiping. Now something interesting here. وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ. Niswa is masculine or feminine? Niswa, the group of women. Feminine, right? So Niswa means group of women. And qala is what? It's masculine. So just to clarify, because I don't want the people who know Arabic to have an advantage, I want everyone to understand. So qala, they said, Niswa, a group of women. Why qala and not qalat, to make it feminine? So first of all, in Arabic, Niswa is a name of a group. So it's called ism jama, the name of a group. And so the qala is not actually referring to, grammatically, it's not referring to the women, it's referring to a group. And so you have the choice to choose masculine or feminine. Both are correct. But what's the point in using masculine? If we have the choice, why don't we just use feminine? And this is a form of istisghar. It's like belittling the women. Because I told you that they weren't doing something good, they were gossiping, right? So by removing the ta, you remove the letter and you are belittling of them, that what they're doing is not very ladylike. It didn't even deserve to use the feminine, connotation, I guess. فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً. She hears about, this news, blowing up on social media. She looks at her phone, she sees all of this, what's happening, right? And basically, وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً, right? She set up a banquet. A banquet's like this gathering, and some of the tabi'een, they describe it as like couches and pillows, and they gave them like fruits, like citrons, and she gave them knives. وَآتَتْ كُلَّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُنَّ سِكِّينًا. She gave them all knives, okay? So again, she made a banquet, and she is inviting everyone to come to this banquet, and the women, to eat and to enjoy their time, I guess. They don't know why they're coming besides to enjoy. So she probably advertised it in a very approachable way, right? وَقَالَتْ اخْرُجْ عَلَيْهِنْ. When everyone's sitting and they're eating, she tells Yusuf, come out and reveal yourself to them, okay? فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنْ. When we saw him, أَكْبَرْنَهُ, obviously, I have to use this example to explain, but when you say Allahu Akbar, you are making takbir, like, of Allah. In this case, they did, like, magnified how incredible he looks, right? أَكْبَرْنَهُ وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنْ. It wasn't like, oh my God, he's so handsome. It was not like that. Because I don't know, like as a kid, I thought it was that way. I was like, what does this mean? Probably they were cutting, and then, he comes in, and they're just like following him, and as they're cutting, eventually they cut their hands. And it happens to everyone, right? And قطعنا, where's the word? وقطعنا is like repetitive cutting, okay? Like imagine like one lady cuts her hand, and Yusuf alayhi salam goes and he puts a band-aid on her hand, and another woman's like, no, me too, and she cuts her hand, and that just happens over and over. They say, حاشا لله, like ما هذا بشرة إن هذا إلا ملك كريم. Like this is not a human. He must be some kind of angel, right? Completely astonished by his looks. قالت, in this verse, this woman is so weird. قالت فذلكن الذي لمتنني فيه. She's like, see this guy is the one you blame me for. It's as if to say, you see how handsome he was? You would have done the same thing. She doesn't try to lie and say like, oh no, I didn't try to seduce him. No. Then she says, yes, I did try to seduce him. فاستعصم. And then again, and if he doesn't do what I want him to do, still, after this meeting, then لا يسجنن ولا يكون من الصاغرين. Like, this person has no shame. Like, so basically this way, she defended herself, right guys? You saw how amazing he looked, so how can you blame me? And if he doesn't do what I tell him, لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَا يَكُونَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. We're going to send him to prison and he will be from the صاغرين. And if you do like a psychoanalysis on this woman, this is like 100% a person that has the mindset of validation, okay? And we have all experienced, like we all have wanted validation at some point in our lives, and we still do. Obviously not to this extent, but to yourself, you can think of a lesser extent of this. But just understand that her main goal is to let everyone think what she did was fine. And when your priority is pleasing everyone, you can just imagine Allah looking at you and He's like, this like poor servant of mine is trying to please all of them when He's not trying to please me, I'm not pleased with Him. So because you can't ever please everyone, like what are you even gonna do? Like Allah makes it very clear. Please Allah, and He even makes people love you in this dunya. Like just think about in general in life that you're not given a very good look when you really just seek validation. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he has a headache from all this. He turns to Allah. He says, قَالَ رَبِّ السِّجْنِ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي إِلَيْهِ. That me going to prison is better than what they are calling me to go to. وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنْ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. If you do not protect me from their treachery, I shall yield to them and do wrong. Notice that the word used for I will yield to them or I will, do what they tell me to do is asbu, which relates to the word sabi as in a boy, meaning that I will become childish and I'm not going to think straight, I'm not going to think about the consequences. Thus, jahil, the opposite of aqil. Aqil is someone, his mind is sound, he thinks about the consequences. Instead, Allah, if you don't take this away from me, I'm going to submit to my nafs, and I'm going to be like a little boy wanting to, submit to my desires. And so Allah hears this dua, of course. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. You want to go to prison? Be my guest. But be my guest, why? فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنْ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. I said earlier that the names of Allah are what keep Yusuf going, like mentally, right? And so, when Allah says, be my guest, and he enters into prison, إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ, he heard the dua, and he is al-alim. He knows that prison is actually better for him. That's why he actually let him go there. So, Surat Yusuf we can divide it into 6 chapters. There is the well, there is the dream, there is the well, there is the palace. And we finished the first 3 chapters today. So that is it for today. That's it. Thank you everyone for coming.